Hi everyone. So this morning I said that I had some sort of announcement to give, and I asked how people wanted to see it. I thought about doing a live thing, but I know time zones are weird. Most people said they wanted to see it in the stories. Some people said so I'm gonna put in the stories like this, and then download them, edit them all together, and upload them onto IGTV. That being said, I'm using a stand. It might be shaky. I have to press buttons. I have to cut and go. So you better just to wait a little bit and then come back and watch the whole thing. So that being said, some of you saw a lot of my stories from Sunday, where I was sort of running around, like a chicken with my head cut off about languages I wanted to study and focuses, and then things about, my professional career as a translator who works on the Middle East and Central Asia, and what are important languages for that, and all these things. I will insert images here. So in that final list, you can see that I narrowed it down to a group of 4 of languages that I've previously studied that are relevant to my interests, personal, professional, and sort of things I've already been doing. And I thought about how in January I made this whole video talking about how I was going to study these 12 languages, and I had things like Hungarian and Polish and Japanese and stuff. And then 4 languages that I've played with and I really want to study more in depth that are more long-term goals for me. And then other languages that could be useful but maybe I'm not super interested in, or other languages that are less useful but I know I've had an interest in, like Armenian and Georgian. If you're unsure, click back, look at that list again. So something I realized while doing all this was that July is about to come, and it's the middle of the year, and that's a good time for reflection. Now, I want to pause here for a second to talk about that thinking process, because I think some of you saw my story in which I discussed this in writing, but mental health is not something we talk about a lot. I think it's something we talk about more and more these days, but not within our community of language learners or the polyglot community online. And a lot of us within the community have mental health issues or struggles, and me personally, I also have ASD, autism spectrum disorder. I have what used to be called Asperger's, or what people used to call being high functioning. And so I manage to live a normal life in a day-to-day basis, but I have moments where I get lost in my thoughts, I break down, my anxiety kicks in. You combine that with sensory issues, and it becomes a mess. And that's sort of what happened Friday. But I want to address that because it's a real part of my life, and it's a real part of a lot of your lives. Now, it's interesting in some ways because what this has led to is the fact that I hop. The fact that I've spent 11 years on Arabic is astounding in some ways, because you guys who have followed me a while, you see the fact that I will study a language, be into it for maybe a month at best, and then get distracted. I just bought an Uzbek or a Ukrainian book, like literally all of 2 months ago. No time for Ukrainian now. So this is, the struggle. And it's interesting because that's also the compliment I get. I get a lot of, when new followers follow me, they message me and say, I love how diverse you are. I love how many different languages from different families and things you do. And I appreciate that. And I'm in some ways proud of that. But it's also frustrating because I look at something like Persian, which has been in my life for 8 years now, and I still barely speak it at a B1 to B2 level. And so that brings sort of stress for me. But I'm also, I'm almost 29, I'm almost 30. I have a career, and there are more things that I want to do with that career as a linguist, as a specialist in the Middle East and Central Asia. I used to be more into Central Asia. I've kind of got distracted, obviously. And so I feel like sometimes it's time to get my act together. I can't just constantly play. I could. I have a career with Arabic, and that's fine. But I would like to expand that, so I need to buckle down in some ways. And so Sunday was sort of a hard moment for me because these are things I've been thinking about for several weeks, even months now, but I've constantly sort of felt overwhelmed. It's, what do you do with this language? What do you do with that language? Is this language still important? Is this language going to be important by the time you get to a functional level where you could use it professionally, because that's going to take, best case scenario, a couple of years, and so that stressed me. And so that's how I sort of ended up at this list. I ended up at a list of languages in the region that I'm interested in, like Arabic, Persian, Hebrew, Pashto, Turkmen, Uzbek, and I'm sort of adjacently interested in Turkish, Kurdish, other things. And then also some colonial or sort of regional power languages like Russian and Chinese that have interests in this region. And then within that, I looked at, what do I work on now, focusing with Arabic, what's immediately adjacent to Arabic, and also what languages do I already know to a certain level, because I felt like those should be my priority. If I already know Persian to, let's say, a comfortable B1, I can get that into a very strong B2, if not a low C1, in a much quicker time than I can get, say, a brand new language like Turkmen or Uzbek up to a B2 level that I could work with. So I combined that with the timing of, sorry, my phone is shaking because of the stand. I combined that with the timing of, July is just around the corner in a couple days, that's halfway through the year, maybe I need to reevaluate, as well as how do I look at moving forward. And I didn't want to hold off on things like Turkmen, Pashto, and Uzbek too long and wait for them to happen next year. So I thought, how do I split the rest of the year and make the most out of it? I also at the same time just started a Farsi class today, Wednesday, July 1st, with the GLM, with the Global Language Network, which I've talked about previously, and I think it's a great opportunity. And it was a very good class. I'm happy with it so far. And I thought, okay, then let me start with these. Let me spend the next significant period of time working on improving languages that I already speak, whether it's in a class or on my own. So I looked at a calendar and I saw there are 26 weeks left in the year. That's half the year. Half of that is 13. And that also happens to coincide nicely with months. So today's July 1st, 13 weeks from today is September 30th. Then the next day is October 1st, which is a Thursday. 13 weeks from that is the very last day of the year, December 31st. So that's my time divisions. And so I figured I'd start with Farsi and other languages that I already speak at a decent level, if not very well, like Arabic. And then halfway through, I'll move on to starting new. I mean, I've studied Turkmen, Uzbek, and Pashto before, but not in a serious way. So I'm briefly going to go into, try to do it quickly, why I picked these languages, or, how I see them and what I want to do with them. Okay, so the finalists I had were 6 regional languages and 2 regional power languages. And then within those, it just happened to divide 3 regional languages that I know quite well, Arabic, Persian, and Hebrew, and 3 regional languages I know slightly, so Turkmen, Uzbek, and Pashto. And then the split in the regional power languages was the same. I've done a lot of Russian and only a little bit of Mandarin Chinese. So that seemed like an easy split for me. Now, I'm sure somebody's going, but you already speak Arabic and you speak it pretty much fluently. Why aren't you, why are you focusing on it? 1, I believe that we can always get better, just in general. But 2, I know the flaws in my Arabic. I'm weak on speaking in Fusha, speaking in MSA, Standard Arabic, and I'm weak on high-level vocab. I'm weak in writing in Fusha. I got very good at colloquial Arabic, and I read at a good level, but I need still to improve more. In terms of Persian, Hebrew, and Russian, I think those are a little bit more obvious. I don't speak any of them fluently. I will mention a caveat that I've been saying Farsi. I say Farsi now a lot. I know some of you have seen my rants about why you shouldn't say Farsi. But 1, I work in translation, and we just say Farsi a lot because it distinguishes it from Dari and Tajik, and that's important when you're trying to get professional interpreters and professional translators. My class that I'm taking is Farsi, but even if I say Farsi, right now, though I'm working on improving my Iranian accent, I will be doing stuff with Dari. I do want to go back and work on some Tajik and practice reading that, because I feel like, I don't know the last time I actually read Tajik. So Persian, but I might accidentally say Farsi. That's the same sort of thing. I love the Iranian world. It's what I started a PhD in, but it's been 8 years and I'm still sort of sitting here at this low intermediate plateau, and it's annoying, and I really just need to get past it. I think in terms of Russian and Hebrew, they're kind of similar. They've both been in my life a long time. Hebrew, I did biblical Hebrew in high school. I've played with modern Hebrew since undergrad. More recently, I really delved into it more, maybe back in 2017, so I'm in 2018. And again, I'm at that point where it's like, I know all the grammar, I can read things with the dictionary, but you ask me to speak and I'm stumbling. And Russian is not the same way, but it's similar. I got quite good at Russian. I did 2 or 3 years. I used Russian in Georgia all the time. I would never say I was fluent. I was maybe at best a B1. And now I'm just like, I struggle to get through things. And both of these languages have been in my life for years and years now, and what have I done with them? Hebrew is very important to me now with my conversion to Judaism, and Russian I see as this important language because Russia has its hands everywhere, and I really just wish I knew it just to have more access to things. So it's on the list. One final comment about this list before I mention the second set is that, and this is also a transition I guess, is a good friend who I shared some of this with already asked, how are you going to justify studying languages for 13 weeks and then just dropping them and moving on to something else? That's partially why I picked these languages, because Arabic's in my life every day, Farsi's in my life almost every day, Hebrew's in my life at least several times a week, and hopefully now every day. And Russian, okay, I don't use it as much, but because I already have a background in these languages, what I'm really doing is I'm improving on skills I already have, and I'm reaching a higher level that it's harder to lose. Spending 13 weeks to try to push myself into what maybe am I speed an A2 of a brand new language, yeah, then I'm gonna lose that. But if in 13 weeks I can push my Farsi up to a comfortable B2, I'm not gonna lose that. Okay, so then starting on October 1st for the rest of the year, I'm going to move into another group of languages, which are languages that are not brand new. I've studied all of them a little bit, I've been prepping resources to dive into them more, and I am going to keep prepping those resources so they're ready for that side of the project. And they're all just sort of differently interesting to me. Pashto, many of you know I've had a sort of on and off fling with for years. I have all these books, and I've just never really taken it that seriously. I get frustrated with it sometimes, and then it gets dropped for a couple weeks. Uzbek and Turkmen are pretty much the only Turkic languages that have been very interesting to me. I like Central Asia. Uzbekistan has Tajiks and Samarkand, Bukhara, and there's a lot of influence there. And Turkmenistan just sort of interests me, like from a sociological, political, historical sort of level, and it's like a fun Central Asian Turkish with a lisp, which is cool. So also these languages, I'm not trying to be fluent in 3 months. What I'm trying to get to is, I think that in those 13 weeks I can probably get to easily a comfortable A2, maybe even a low B1 in some of them. I've studied all of them before. They're not that weird or new for me, at least grammatically and syntactically speaking. It's mostly vocab, pronunciation, speaking, like making it work. So I think I can get pretty far in 3 months. But again, those 3 languages at least, they're not on my, I need to be fluent ASAP to work with them, to do all these things. They're just things I care about and I want to dive into significantly. And then when 2021 rolls around in January, we'll see where I am. Maybe I fell in love with Turkmen and Pashto and I broke up. It is what it is. It might happen. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, now some of you might be thinking, like, you've been talking for several minutes, but you still haven't mentioned Chinese. You talked about Chinese. So Chinese is a language that I studied for a semester in college. I fell in love with Arabic and pursued that, and I never really came back to it. I've bought books over the years, I've thought about doing it, I've played with it, I've just gone through phases with it. I've always been more interested in Cantonese or Taiwanese dialect of Chinese, and not standard Beijing or sort of Mandarin. However, I'm at a point now where I do want to do it, but I know myself well enough that though I am good with pronunciation and good with sounds, I need the input of a teacher for the sake of tones. I'm musical, I sing, I play instruments, but I need that either feedback of, okay, no, you said this, but you heard it this way, and so listen to me and repeat, or, I just need that, at least for the first maybe year until I get comfortable with it. So I'm comfortable with the fact that I might need a teacher, but I also know that that's going to be more of an investment, not just, financially, but time-wise. And though I'm okay with that, I'm just still wondering about if I want to do it so soon. So one of the things I'm thinking about is, out of the Arabic, Farsi, Hebrew, Russian languages, my weakest is probably Russian. There was a point where I would say my weakest is Hebrew, but right now my Russian is really rusty. And I have Hebrew speakers in my life. I have a lot of contact with Hebrew, but Russian I don't. Russian's going to be my effort language, and as well as Persian during this first 13 weeks. And so I am considering, what if I just continue with Russian till the end of the year? So during these 26 weeks, do Russian, and during the first 13, do Arabic, Persian, Hebrew with it, and the second 13, do Turkmen, Uzbek, and Pashto. That also works because Russia's so big in Central Asia, and with Russian being so big in Central Asia, there's going to be overlap there, whether it's Russian loanwords in Turkmen and Uzbek, whether it's Turkmens and Uzbeks that I meet online, or maybe get a teacher, like an italki teacher. They pretty much all the italki teachers who teach those languages also teach Russian, also speak Russian. There are Russian loanwords, there's books in Russian about Turkmen and Uzbek. There are very few books in English on Turkmen. I own like one of the ones. I think there's maybe less than 5 decent ones, but there are more in Russian. So I think the idea of keeping Russian during that second period would also be useful to allow me to improve my Russian even more, so that maybe by January it's at that higher level where I'm less likely to forget things and I'm using it more often in my life. And then in January, maybe I can shift focus and be working more with Mandarin, because I know that's definitely going to take up time and effort, and it's going to be a big part of my study. So that's sort of where I am. I know previously, and I'm not saying this is some sort of weird confession, but I don't have a great track record of sticking to things. I do genuinely think that this time will be different, because these languages mean something to me. I have a long-term plan. I know that Turkmen and Uzbek are coming, so I'm not going to be having that FOMO, that fear of missing out on studying them, when I know that, we'll just wait a couple months, they're coming. And I also have come more to terms with things like, it's okay to have what Marissa calls a wind down language, and being able to say, right now, tonight I need a break. I'm gonna go screw around with some Polish or some Catalan, and it's not gonna mean anything. It's just for me to relax and take my mind off of all of this and work and other things in life. And so I think that'll help me stay on track in the long term. I will also say one more thing that's more about sort of the mental health side and less about this. I'm not trying to gimmick this or turn this into a challenge. I'm not going to try to go with a fun name like the Balkan Binge or 12 Languages for 2021. For many years, that's really what I wanted. I wanted to be an online polyglot. And I almost said famous there. It was less about fame. It was more, I really just love this. This is my whole life, and I think all you all see that. And I just wanted to make this my career. And I have another job and a career that's related now, and I love it, and I'm very content with it. And so that's sort of allowed me to just look back at, what am I doing here on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook with you all, and sort of just be like, pardon my French, but fuck it. This is about me. This is what I want to do. This is what I need. And I hope, you guys are okay to just join me for the ride. If there is anything that I have said for the 8+ years that I've been language blogging on the internet, it has always been, you do what you want and you do what you love. If you want to learn Mandarin because it's a world language, go do it. But if you want to learn Latvian because you think Latvian's cool, don't let other people shame you for doing it. And I think I've often got caught up in my head and tried to do what I think people want to see, or get so distracted by so many options out there that I've lost track of what I really love. And I know some people find it funny. They're like, how is a trans woman in love with the Middle East and Central Asia? But I am. I love it, and I love what I do, and so this is me getting myself back on track into working with things that I care about. So, in summary, because I've been talking for a very long time now, today, July 1st, for 13 weeks until September 30th, I will be trying to just focus on improving my skills in Arabic, Persian, Hebrew, and Russian. And then starting October 1st through the end of the year, I will be picking up Turkmen, Uzbek, and going back to Pashto, and then either continuing with Russian, which is what I think will happen, or starting Mandarin as well. So I hope you all enjoy that. If you're not into it, bye. But, I'm still going to make videos. I'm still going to post photos of things that I'm doing, stories of stuff. Nothing's going to change, just hopefully me. So thank you all for your support and everything. And people have been super kind this week after I got very personal on Sunday with mental health stuff. And thank you for that. Somebody would point out that they've been following me for years, which means that they followed me pre-transition. And I will say that I think, if there's one thing I've also always been, it's very genuine. I hope that you guys see that I get praise, I get messages, I get people being like, you're so smart, you're a genius. And it's like, yes, those things are nice to hear. Everybody loves that. But at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm smart. I don't care if somebody thinks I'm a genius. I love what I do, and I will do it until the day I die. And so, that's that. I hope everyone has a good night. I hope you all are here for the ride and you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Good night.